Over the past 30 years, 208 people in New York State have been freed from prison after being convicted of crimes they did not commit. And we know that the two leading factors in wrongful convictions are misidentification by witnesses and false confessions.
So this year, state lawmakers are now discussing criminal justice reform to help prevent these catastrophic mistakes from occurring. And police have already started to put their own policies in place.
Tonight, 2 on Your Side's Danny Spiewak brings us the story of one man's nightmare as he works to fix the system that stole his freedom.
Thank you, everybody.
In 2008, 2 days before Thanksgiving, Stephen Barnes finally got his homecoming.
We waited too long for this.
Yeah, I know.
Too long.
So I'm overwhelmed, you know. It's the happiest day of my life. I waited for this for 20 years.
Back in 1989, a jury convicted Barnes in the murder of Kimberly Simon, a 16-year-old girl from central New York. His mother, Sylvia, visited him every weekend while he was in prison for 2 entire decades.
When they slammed that iron prison gate, I'll never forget the sound. You know, it's just so heart-wrenching that they close that gate and your son is locked behind there and you know he hasn't done anything and you can't do anything about it.
With help from the Innocence Project, DNA evidence exonerated her son in 2008. Forensic evidence and eyewitnesses had been all wrong during the original trial. These days, Barnes still lives in the small town of Marcy near Utica, just around the corner from his mother. Time seems to move much faster outside of a prison cell.
I didn't celebrate holidays in prison. I didn't celebrate my birthday. I didn't really tell anybody good morning, you know. It was just a place where the strong survive and the weak get preyed on, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy.
Barnes joins a group of more than 200 exonerees in New York, according to a national database from the University of Michigan Law School. Some of the high-profile Western New York cases include Anthony Capozzi, who spent 20 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit, Lynn Dijak, who served 14 years, Jerome Thagard, 4 years, Josue Ortiz, 9 years. Since his own release in 2008, Stephen Barnes has taken 6 trips to the state capitol in Albany to push for criminal justice reform.
I just want New York State to take action on this.
A bill under consideration this session would make major changes to investigative procedures to help prevent wrongful convictions. Republican State Senator Patrick Gallivan of Elma is a co-sponsor of the bill in the Senate. He is also a former Erie County sheriff.
We want to make sure we convict the guilty, but at the same time, exonerate the innocent.
The first part of the legislation deals with what's called a photo array. This is what police show to witnesses when they're trying to see if they can identify a suspect under investigation. As a part of this proposed bill, the officer doing the photo array would not be allowed to know the identity of the suspect under investigation. It's called a double-blind or blinded process, and the goal behind it is to eliminate any sort of bias, even if it's unintentional. And in return, the prosecution can use the results in court.
So that nobody can make an accusation that the law enforcement officer steered the individual in the wrong direction.
The second part of the bill would require police to video record all interviews with suspects in certain felony cases. This could guard against false confessions, but it could also protect police by giving them concrete proof of statements made by defendants.
It can help ensure that that interview, that confession can stand up in court.
Back in the 80s, police questioned Stephen Barnes for 12 hours.
I've asked for certain things during interrogation, like a phone call, and they said I never asked. It would bring all that into the open. You could see what was being said by the cops, what could be said by the witness, what was going on in that room.
But the Senate has yet to reach a consensus with the Assembly, so the bills remain in committee. Even in the absence of a law, many departments have voluntarily started using the new techniques.
I would say it's probably becoming the norm.
John Conti is a detective lieutenant with the Niagara Falls Police Department. His department already uses this computer database to build a blind photo array to show to witnesses. Niagara Falls Police also record interviews in all A felony and B felony cases at the very least. They have 2 interview rooms in their police headquarters filled with video technology they paid for with grant money.
It's very important that we use these principles as they've evolved to be as exacting as possible to get the right person charged with that crime and not have the person who's wrongly convicted.
In Erie County, Acting District Attorney Michael Flaherty supports the reforms. The Buffalo Police Department already uses blinded photo arrays and records interviews in felony cases.
In an ideal world, I'd like to see every interview recorded. We're working our way towards that.
But the Barnes family doesn't just want agencies to use recommended practices. They want it to be the law.
There's no reason why it shouldn't be done. I mean, if it prevents wrongful convictions, why not?
Barnes has now been free for nearly 8 years, and he doesn't take his freedom, or anyone's, for granted.
Every day I get up is like a holiday. Got my life back, so.
There is one potential complication from this legislation. That's the funding aspect of all of this. Take Buffalo Police, for example. Their homicide and sex offense squads have this technology, but if the legislation were to pass, they told me they'd probably have to add the equipment to all of their district buildings, so that would cost $6,000 per building. Buffalo Police do record interviews, as we said, and they certainly welcome the technology, but they would probably have to look for some outside funding.
Sure. Yeah, it can be expensive, but, you know, when you consider the price of justice in this case, you know, that man's never going to get those 20 years back.
Yeah, and you look at it, these are reforms that are supported on the police side and on the exoneree side. The Innocence Project supports these same reforms. So they're trying to work on the same page, but logistically are, you know, some of the things they got to work out.
And no amount of money can bring back those 20 years. Did he get a financial settlement?
He did get a settlement from the state. It was $3.5 million, I believe. But, you know, again, as his mother told us when we interviewed him in Marcy near Utica, that the money makes his life better, but it doesn't erase anything.
Absolutely.
It gives him a chance to kind of restart his life.
Interesting,
Yeah,
fascinating.
Terrible ordeal, but a great report. Thank you, Danny.
Appreciate Danny. All right, let's go upstairs to Kevin